of empathy and kindness. I'm just of the mind that, if you were only going to pray one thing for this country right now, it's empathy. I don't think that's necessarily a new need, but it's just something that I realized this is one of the biggest sources of a lot of what we're seeing today.
Absolutely.
So specifically, I'll be sharing some habits of mind concerning how we can engage with others in a way that builds them up, builds relationship, builds trust, rather than tears them down when engaging, when you are facing confrontation. This topic has been coming up in our book study. And it's also one I have been learning quite a bit myself in my own coaching study and professional development over the last year. And while today's concepts will be very useful for encounters with sandpaper people, I believe that these are just really great ideas and concepts and habits of mind to keep in mind, to keep when engaged in any kind of confrontation with anybody, including those that we're close to. And I'm using a pretty open definition for confrontation. And basically it's that when you have two people and they're engaged in dialogue and they are in disagreement about something. And now what it is, small, big, huge spectrum there, but that's how I'm defining confrontation today. So if our goal is to be in all things a blessing to others and to let our light shine bright when we find ourselves in all situations, but in particular confrontation, we need to be very mindful to be genuinely seeking ways to offer support and not judgment. This might seem like a very simple and obvious concept, except that I find that too often, most people, when engaged in some kind of confrontation, they immediately, without even realizing it, start acting in a place of judgment. And that could be in, if some people might have certain, what I might call fix-it tendencies. I'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later on, where, someone's sharing with something with you and you immediately just try to fix it, right? That can lead to confrontation. I'm sure many of you have experienced that kind of thing, whether being on either side of it. It could also be when someone says or does something that you feel like, hey, that might be a little bit harmful to me or someone else in here. There's all kinds of examples of what confrontation can kind of look like. But oftentimes when we're just immediately going into a reaction, like a call, like finding a solution or a suggestion or something like that, when we do that, we're kind of coming from a place of judgment. We've already decided what that person needs, what they need to hear, what they need to receive. And maybe we don't know everything there is to know before we form that judgment.
Amen.
So in doing that, rather than taking time to first investigate or explore and understand what the other person might be experiencing, we instead rush to offer solutions, answers, suggestions, corrections, rebukes, calling out. We can be quick to point out what someone else is doing wrong, not realizing that pointing out mistakes in people's beliefs or ideology sometimes doesn't really support or build them up. Not that those things are never necessary, but if we don't first seek to connect with that person, to try to understand them and where they're coming from and what they're going through, and we're not invited to give that correction or solution or whatever it is you want to educate them on or convince them of, failing to do that can often do much harm to the trust and relationship that person has invested in you. Matthew 7, 1 through 2 has a pretty well-known verse. Do not judge, or you too will be judged. or in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. We most commonly think of that verse in that we are going to be judged by God, and that's not an incorrect interpretation, but it's also true that if we are if we are judging people unfairly, prematurely, they're going to be judging us back as someone that's maybe not that interested in who they are. Maybe that they might think that we are carrying beliefs of them that are not true. And we don't know what those judgments are, but sometimes but that's another warning that verse is trying to give us, is that not only might God be judging us, but the person we're trying to have a relationship with, the person maybe we're trying to affect some kind of change in them. If we're acting out of a place of judgment, they're going to come from a place of judgment right back, most likely. And then the confrontation can get worse, and the possibility of change becomes less and less likely. If you don't first seek to understand and empathize with this other person's perspective, no matter what that perspective might be, or how offensive or against your own values and beliefs it might be, then a rebuke or a correction or even a solution or suggestion or another, something like that, it could potentially feel like an attack on them. They may feel as if, and they may not be thinking about this way, but they might feel as if you are not just correcting or rebuking or correcting that one thing they said or did, but actually attacking their self-identity. That could be their identity as a husband, or a wife, or a friend, or as a Christian, or just as a competent or otherwise good person. They might be feeling that you're attacking that. That might not be your intention, but when you skip right to, here's what you need to do, here's the answer, or hey, that's wrong, stop doing that. It can sometimes feel like an attack on their identity. And neuroscience tells us that threats to people's self-identity trigger the same exact response in our system, in our nervous system, as threats to our physical safety. In other words, it'll trigger a reaction of fight, flight, freeze, or appease. Now, once someone's in that kind of headspace, that's it. There's no change happening until that person gets out of that headspace, right? But that's a whole other thing, right? And and at that point, you might just have to walk away. And we'll talk a little bit about asking yourself, okay, in this moment, what's possible? At that point, not much, other than maybe trying to repair. Ecclesiastes 3:7 says, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak. When you find yourself engaged in confrontation with someone, my biggest influence, Elena Aguilar, and biggest influence on my coaching, and how I've learned to interact with people and be able to coach them in a way that affects change. She says to keep in mind purpose and possibility. I touched a little bit on these in the book study, but I'm going to talk a little bit about them more now. So first, purpose. When you are in confrontation with someone, be very clear with yourself. What is your true purpose in that situation? What is the purpose of going further into this confrontation or saying what you're going to say next in that confrontation? Is it to genuinely try to help and build them up? Is it to just show them how wrong they are? Do you really believe that this is an important thing that needs to be addressed? And it could be. Or do you just feel like you have to because, well, you identify yourself as the person who calls someone out, maybe, or or others are watching you and you feel like, oh, I gotta say something. Like, is that your purpose? Philippians 2:3-4 says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, Value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others. I'm going to come back to that one again a little bit later. Just as faith without works is dead, so are works without faith, without that intention in alignment with God. Even if what you might want to say can be done so in a way that's kind, necessary, and true, it's also important that your intentions behind offering that kind, necessary, true statement are also in alignment with God, as opposed to in alignment with just how you identify yourself, is how you speak out, or or is it about trying to impress others or model for others? Like, is that, if your intentions aren't aligning with an otherwise good thing, that could mean maybe that thing shouldn't be done by you anyways. The second thing to keep in mind is possibility. Ask yourself, what is possible here? Are both of you in a state of mind to clearly and calmly engage? That's why, like, slow to speak is really important, because if you come out with something, even if it's kind of necessary and true, without fully understanding the situation, you might send them into that fight, flight, freeze, or appease mode, and then not much is possible here. Or is this a behavior or belief that can be changed due to this confrontation? Depending on the relationship, who it is, the situation, maybe change isn't really a possibility in that situation. Is this an opportunity to possibly plant a seed that might grow later? Will your approach possibly make them feel attacked? Again, possibly triggering them into a state where that's it. There's nothing productive that can happen. This is important to keep in mind, because having a realistic expectation as to what can be accomplished by this engagement with this specific person should greatly affect what specific action you take. For example, if it's a situation in which you don't think change is possible or influence over them is possible, as far as changing their attitude or beliefs or ways of being, but you need to put a stop to a harmful action from continuing, well, maybe all that's possible is just a simple, hey, what you said, what you did that is harmful, please don't do that around me. And then that's it. You don't engage further in a situation where you're like, I don't think I can affect this person, but I do need to just make sure the harm is being stopped. Only if you feel that this is a situation where you might be able to have influence over their beliefs or future actions, that you want to have a future relationship, close relationship with them, whether it's a working relationship or not. Only then would you then attempt to engage with them in discussion. Now, once you've got your purpose clear and a realistic expectation for what's possible, and assuming you're going to go ahead and try to engage in dialogue with them, it is important you don't lose sight of the dynamic and complex human being in front of you. This sounds simple, but in fact, it's very easy to forget, and I see it too often among just about everyone. Myself included. I have, this is something I've been working on myself. With good intentions, harm can still be done. If we are prioritizing fixing problems, fixing people over the core human needs of the person in front of us, then if those needs continue to be left unmet, that problem that we're trying to solve or fix probably won't really get addressed. It's very unlikely that any change can actually happen if you don't first figure out what's going on with that person. Where are they coming from first? To paint a picture of that in a way that might feel very familiar to many of you, I have a video that I'm going to show. It's a very brief one, and I got the impression that no one, including Sister Sue, has seen it, which This is something that's like, it's got like billions of views or something like that. I had seen it myself many times. It gets shown around in PDs about working well with others and stuff so much. So, but there's a reason why. There's some problems with it, not that aren't that too big a deal, but I think it's something that everyone will be able to relate, and then and then I got a little bit more to say about it, and then we're gonna start getting with our pew partners. That's gonna be my new term now. Pew partners, like, yeah, you gotta have someone to, because as we start going, we're gonna do some reflection questions and discussion, just like did last time. A little bit tweak on the timing, but very similar like to last time. But like last time, everyone's got to have someone to talk with, virtual. If you're online, you are pew partners. There's no maximum or, well, the minimum's two. No one, you can't do this by yourself. So yeah, let's go ahead and put the video on and we'll come back.
Can you share it, Joseph?
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know?
Okay. All right, put it back. Oh, put on Zoom. And, ooh. Oh yeah, okay.
So that's the audio.
Oh, yes.
Just the screen.
Okay. I thought
Great, awesome.
there was a sign that said now sharing.
Hit the,
I want them to see the video too. I'm worried.
yeah, hit the one below. Hit the entire screen. There you go. Now hit share.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, that feels better. Ah, there we go. That's
There's
what I'm
our
looking for,
share.
that you are sharing now, all right. And Zoom PR, I'm gonna play this if you're not hearing it, someone yell.
There's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me. And I could just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there.
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing.
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail. Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
That sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you.
Oh, come on. If you would just
Don't.
gotta say things my way.
That it, just about.
That's it, yeah, that's the video, yeah. Now, I acknowledge that this video is depicting these characters in some stereotypically gendered ways. You know, the common stereotype that men don't listen and just want to solve problems, and then women are just emotional and irrational and just want to be heard. Today is not the day for me to start deconstructing those stereotypes, but instead try to think of these as two people that simply have two different communication styles that but persons of any gender can embody. Someone with really strong fix-it tendencies, I can imagine them going, I'm not even going to engage in discussion. I'm just going to reach over, I'm going to pluck that nail out, and everything's going to be fine, and we can move on with our lives. Why even spend the time to discuss it when I can just fix it right now? But that person might want to consider first stopping to consider a few things. One, if you pulled the nail out of her head, maybe their brains would spill out and they would die. Maybe that nail serves a purpose that we're not aware of. Maybe she wakes up every morning and intentionally, purposefully hammers it into her head. So what's really going on here? Maybe the solution that seems so obvious is not the solution. James 1:19, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. The guy in this video is not at all curious about the root causes of the situation. He sees a quick fix and is impatient with the need, and is impatient with her need to share in her experience, in her suffering. And his need to solve problems blinds him to the possibility that his solution might not actually be what is truly needed by her. He is centering his need to find a quick resolution to the problem and doesn't recognize that maybe her process for healing is different. What she needs, what all of us need, is empathy before problem solving. This is a form of compromise. Not necessarily a compromise in deciding, hey, what course of action are we going to take next? Where are we going next? What's this next thing we're going to do? But rather a compromise on whose needs are going to be centered in this situation. Sometimes that's like the hardest thing to compromise. Philippians 2:3-4, again, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of the others. And that's a little bit about what was the conflict that we were seeing in that video, is there was this struggle to understand each other's needs. And because they couldn't understand that, there wasn't compromise, there was just more tension. That sort of compromise does a lot to build relationships and trust, because being willing to compromise and give on your needs, your core human needs, that really sends a message to the other person of how much you really value them, much more than compromising on where we're going to go to dinner tonight or where we're going to vacation. Like, this means like, hey, like my values, well, not necessarily your values, but like, hey, I'm really going to put your needs as a human over mine in this situation. An unwillingness to compromise is an unwillingness to see the other person with kindness and empathy in that moment. It may not be the intention, but that is going to be how that's received. It is a hardened position that signifies that you see the other as an opponent to be defeated or a challenge to overcome, as opposed to a full dynamic human being with a wide range of experience, perspective, needs. And when we engage in confrontation, which in and of itself is not a problem, there's nothing wrong with being in a discussion where two people have disagreement. A lot of good can come out of healthy confrontation. But when we engage in that confrontation to make sure it can be a healthy, productive dialogue, a healthy, productive confrontation, we need to first seek to empathize with and understand that person and what they're experiencing. Where's this coming from? Right? Let them share their experience before you make the judgment that you know all, here's the answer. Oh, sorry, it's my train of thought. Oh yeah, seeking to empathize with and understanding the person so that you can both come up with solutions together. And a path forward together that treats both parties as equal partners in that relationship, whether that relationship is a marriage, a friendship, your neighbor, a coworker. Everything I've said here is very universally applicable. So with that said, let's go ahead and engage in a little bit of reflection and some sharing. So like I said, everyone's gonna need some pew partners. And Deshaun, not a problem. I think these are prompts where even if you kind of missed the first part, these are prompts that you should be able to engage in conversation pretty good. It looks like you're moving up and with Sister Mason because she needs a pew partner. Yeah, okay, so let me go ahead and this time I'm gonna just kind of do like one prompt at a time. Just with like shorter, like, times. Oh, wait. Oh, we'll find out. Hopefully there's none. All right, so there's gonna be four. Oh, wait, let me that. Get some of this stuff out of the way. Yeah, I did it last time. Oh, there we go. It's just. All right, so there's gonna be four, let me go ahead and move this up here out of the way. All right, so there's gonna be four different reflective discussion prompts. I'll give you a few minutes to reflect and share your thoughts with your pewmates. But know as you're discussing, as you're sharing, I'll then be calling on each pew to be like, all right, share me, not everything, but just like maybe like any standout things that were shared or ideas or anything like that. And you can decide in each, I guess it's gonna be pairs, who's gonna be the one sharing that. And then we'll go on to the next prompt, and then at the end, I'll give you a few minutes to think about takeaways from the entire morning. And then with your pew partners, and then again, having a rep kind of share those out with the church. All right, so the first prompt. Oh, I can't see that. So like the nail video example, share with your pew partners and then be prepared to share some takeaways with the church. When have you found yourself rushing to solve someone's problem instead of truly listening? And then what happened when you did? Well, I'm gonna set a timer, but any questions about the prompt? And then down at the bottom are some scriptures that I shared today that are relevant. So if you want to include some kind of scripture in your response, you can, but it's not required. Okay, with that said, there's no questions. Oh, and then the Zoom people, I'm gonna go ahead and mute our sound so that way when you're talking, no one else is listening in. I'm gonna do that right now. All right, and then you can start. Wait, don't even do it there.
No.
Okay, Marcia, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Because I can still hear everybody else in the background.
yeah.
So thinking about the video and your own personal experience, Have you had a situation where you've rushed to help solve somebody's problem instead of just listening?
Yeah, but it's been a while back. I don't remember.
Yeah. Well, this kind of stands out for me because, especially previously in my work life, somebody would be talking and explaining their issue, and I would be jumping ahead in my own
And it's
head
kind of like you can
into
see
the problem.
what the source of the
So
issue is.
I would end up not really
And what
listening,
fixes on
hearing
both
what the
of
person
those.
was saying.
It's easy to kind of stop listening because you already know.
So I don't know if that kind of fits with what
Right,
you've
with what he's
experienced.
talking about, right.
Yeah.
Well, and then.
And then, if you're not really listening and you come up and try to discuss a solution, it may not even be something the person can relate to. They haven't
Right.
heard what their problem is.
Yeah, I was thinking of that.
Well, like the video said, he was worried about that nail, and she said that's not the problem.
Right. It was a distraction from him, and he couldn't hear.
Right. He wasn't listening.
Right. So what was her visible response to him not hearing what she said and focusing on the nail?
Yeah.
She wasn't really listening to him because she wanted to get her point across.
So I'm sorry, say again.
I say she wasn't really listening to him because she was trying to get her point across.
Yeah.
Well, and I was trying to.
She was distracted because she
I
thought he was totally focused on the nail.
pulled back from considering.
So kind of what is the overall result if you're not really listening?
What was that you said?
All right, I'm gonna bring everyone back together again. Zoom people, you're off of mute. All right, so then we'll just go around like pew to pew. So Zoom people, very briefly, like 30 seconds or less, what are some what are some topics that came out of your discussion?
That would be Sister Marcia and Sister Nancy. You're the Zoom
Oh,
people.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Also, during the discussion, the sanctuary wasn't really muted. So it was hard for us to hear.
Yeah, that's the point, so that they couldn't or so that you guys wouldn't hear it on their conversations. Yeah.
Oh, anyway, okay, well, we had a conversation.
Good.
Marcia, do you want to start, or what would you like to share?
Well, like I say, I really don't have nothing because I try to listen to people.
Okay.
Yeah, in our discussion, I'm kind of in the same situation. It related more to when I was working and dealing with an individual or situations, and this is something I really have to pay attention to, because discussing an issue or a problem, I have to really work to focus on what the person is saying so I hear them. And especially in my work life, I would be jumping ahead in my own head to solve the issue. And like the video, that nail was a distraction for the guy. And he was so distracted by that, he couldn't hear what she was saying. But then she was distracted because he was focused on the nail, so they just were not communicating. So, and I think what happens is both people get frustrated and nothing comes out of the discussion. Or if you're jumping ahead trying to solve the problem and not listening, the solution you came up with may not even be relevant. And then that can add a whole nother level of frustration in the conversation.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. All right, we're just gonna go in rotation. So Pastor and First Lady, brief overview, takeaways.
So we talked about two situations when we find ourselves kind of rushing to solve problems. And one is when we listen to our kids. And, you know, with a lot of times me with Bryce and Pastor with Brittany, we know a lot about the backstory of what they're telling us. So we know, well, if you would just do blah, 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 we don't say that for lots of reasons. But that's a situation where we know so much context about what's going on. We just want to jump in and say, well, here's what we can do, you know, to solve this. I think we do listen to them, but more just because we know they need just to vent and let it out, not that we're learning new about the situation. And then conversely, we deal with people at Patton and Vista where we don't have the foundation of being able to believe what they tell us is true, not because they're lying to us, but because of the mental capacity, perhaps to have things confused. So in that case, it's hard to even jump to a solution because you're just not sure what you're hearing is really the truth. So this discussion kind of made us realize that the context of how much you know about someone or know about their situation sort of influences how much you really listen. So kind of to Nancy's point of a distraction, too much or too little context about a person's background can really be a distraction. You're trying to listen.
Yeah. And not everyone dealing with very serious mental health issues is in an institution. So
You're saying that they're in the line in front of you or behind at Walmart.
right, yeah, so like, would you like, hey, that might just not only be something at Patton, like, or Vista. Sister Mason and Deshaun, what was the overall you guys topic?
Two discussions too. One was similar to theirs, where a lot of, you know, I have kids, you have grandkids, so that was one of ours. And then another one we touched on was like, I don't know if it was like more of a problem, but more of different of opinions, like with the political aspect of like the vote, how we voted, and we always have discussions at night with my coworkers on why I vote this way or why that person voted this way, and instead of trying to like, we just go tit for tat instead of trying to like understand, I guess, each other's side of view. I guess that's like one of the things we have to do is just agree to disagree, because I will never disagree on the way they went that way, and I guess they'll never agree with the way that I voted this way. So I guess we just having that type of discussion. Yeah, I guess you just have to agree to disagree.
Yeah, no, yeah, because you know, what's possible. Oftentimes in a situation like that, changing their mind in that moment is probably just not possible, right? So, you know, you represent who you are, what you feel. Hopefully you're trying to get an understanding of them, but understanding that, hey, if we don't get closure on this, maybe that's okay. So that's a very kind of mature way to think about it. Yeah. Last but not least, the Jeffersons, what was the overall of you guys' conversation?
Basically the same as everyone else. We have children, we have grandchildren. And we're trying to understand them because they bring problems home and they won't talk to us. We have to hear from someone else. And she gets upset with me because I get their face about it. And why are you gonna go tell someone else this and you won't talk to me? You afraid of me? You scared I'm gonna punch you out or something?
Yeah.
But
Just to be that
we know Jeff.
still working with it, and but like I tell my grandkids, I said, look, If you got a problem, you don't wanna talk to me about it, go pray about it, and then we'll talk about it. And they're working on that. But I have a friend, my next door neighbor, and he's hard to understand because he knows it all. And I don't challenge him. I normally listen to what he has to say. And then, well, like the other day, he said, how did you vote? And I said, why? He said, I voted Republican. I said, okay, that was your choice. You don't need to know how I voted, because all it's gonna do is come up with an argument. And I really don't care to argue. But he said, well, don't you think the Republican Party gonna do a lot better than the 8 years that we've had with Democrats running the country? And I said, it doesn't matter who's running the country. It matters what God has planned for us. Now, the 8 years that the Democrats been running the country, God put that in place. Now, this Republican ideas, all of this, I don't agree with. I don't agree with. But I prayed on it and said, well, let's wait and see what happens. So he brought up the subject, well, about how the president did away with some of the jobs. We already have all these people not working. No place to live, so they're on the street.
Right.
Okay, but I didn't go into that with him. I just said, don't you think this administration is putting more people on the streets? They're not resolving the problem. So he came back and said, well, he's doing away with this, that, this, and all of this, and he's doing this for the people and all of this. I haven't seen anything for the people.
Okay.
That's why I stay in prayer. God and pray.
That's good. Yeah, you're sharing your values and kind of being clear on like, hey, this is where my beliefs are stemming from, my feelings.
Yes.
So that's good. That's good. All right. Next prompt.
Sorry, it's not good.
Oh. All right. So next prompt. When you encounter, let me shrink that. When you encounter someone with opposing views, and there's a reason why there's order, we already kind of start getting into this, right? So when you encounter someone with opposing views, do you tend to focus more on fixing their perspective or understanding the journey, like how they got to that perspective? How might changing your approach affect the outcome, whatever your approach tends to be, whether you're fixing their perspective, understanding the journey, something else? Any questions about the prompts? Okay, then I'm gonna go ahead and mute our volume and then start the timer.
Okay. When I encounter somebody with an opposing view, I think I tend more to try to understand their perspective or their journey than trying to fix it. You know, trying to change someone's mind, you know, that doesn't really work. So I think you need to try to understand where they're coming from. What are your thoughts on that, Marcia?
We should all think the way I do. I mean,
Right, that's exactly right.
I got one. I'm having
They
one.
change their mind, they set up for one way. So I just listen to it.
God decided, you know what? One's enough for you two.
People just want to be heard. They don't want no advice or anything. They just want to be heard. So that's what I do. I sit and listen and let them talk it out.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Otherwise, you're just gonna create a
Right,
situation,
otherwise you're gonna end up in an argument or a debate.
yeah, a confrontation. Yep.
So that's why I say I have a lot of people call me and they be talking and they say, well, you don't say nothing. I say, cause I just feel you want to vent. You don't want nobody
Yes.
to say you right or you wrong.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
just want somebody to listen to get it off your chest.
You know, they have no idea.
That's what I do.
Yeah. Yep. Otherwise, like you say, you're just going to be in a major battle back and forth.
So I
So I guess when he says they mute us from them.
Right, they mute where they don't hear our discussion.
Yeah.
So that's why we
That's how we
they
go
be
about changing the approach.
That's the approach you have to take. So
We can hear the chattering.
right. You hear them talk.
Right. How's your weather? Are
We
you,
at
is your,
41 degrees, our snow is melting.
uh,
Well,
that's still,
Linda,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, Linda.
We're supposed to be almost 80 degrees today. So,
That's good.
but 41 to me sounds really chilly.
Oh yeah, 41 is chilly. But like I say, our snow is melting, so
Yeah, slowly but surely.
yeah.
So it sounds like maybe the storms are over for a while.
They said this week it's warm up, but it's about warm up in 40.
Well, that's good.
Right? Maybe that's what your purpose is, just what
Yeah,
your.
tomorrow we'll get into the 50s.
All right, gonna bring everyone back together. And then we'll just go in reverse order this time. So prompt again, when you encounter someone with opposing views, do you tend to focus on fixing and changing, influencing their perspective? Or do you spend time in trying to understand their journey on how they got there to begin with? So we'll go ahead and start with the Jeffersons.
No way.
You don't know fixing.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's their point of view and our point of view, and we know from the beginning, it's gonna be a conflict, so what about it?
Okay.
I know that's probably the wrong. But other views, huh? We do. Example, he was talking about the neighbor and political stuff, I just listen to him, I don't even. Engage, really,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
because I know it'll stop.
When he brings up examples, I bring up examples too after he's finished. And then that's where I tell him, just go pray on it and we'll talk about it later.
Right.
I won't
Yeah,
see
try
him
to
for
get
about
out
a
of those
week.
conversations and. I say we try to get out of that conversation, or if I see it going that way, I will bring something else in and kind of veer away from that conversation.
So you're, in a way, you're assessing, okay, with this individual, what's possible, what's likely, and there are times when you're like, hey, you know, I don't know if change or even planting a seed is possible, or if there is, I don't know what that would look like, so maybe I'm not going to engage, and that's perfectly acceptable. Deshaun and Sister Mason, what were you guys talking about with this last one?
We talk about pretty much the same thing about the different type of parenting styles and
Yeah.
talk about the political thing again with her and her daughter. And with that one, we just said just understanding their journey, because she said like how her daughter thought that Trump did certain things that helped people, which a lot of things she said really he didn't do, but he got credit for. So on that one, we just said, you know, just gotta try to understand their journey and their perspective. Then on different type of parenting style, like her daughter is older, my children are younger, so that's like, we had two different opinions because she's like, she had an incident where her grandchildren came over and she spanked them, and I guess there was a dispute because she didn't tell the parents that they spanked them, and there's a little bit of conflict on the whole situation. And you know, there's someone else's kids, they're older people you're dealing with, so you kind of gotta understand their journey. But in my situation, my kids are little, so it's just because I said so. I don't have to understand anything because, you know, I'm always looking out for their best interests, so I don't have to explain. But they like to do that. Oh, why? Because I said so. There's no understanding their side because they're little, and you know, I'm just looking out for them in the long run. So that's where the difference came.
Hey, parenting styles can be just as controversial as political right versus political left. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. Great shout out. Pastor and Sister Sue.
Okay.
Talking enough, so I'm gonna let
You talking. Some people may say I talk enough too, so our conversation, first of all, no, we're not trying to fix someone that has the opposing viewpoint. And I know that we need to understand where they come from, but I think for us, it's more of an opportunity for them to understand where we come from. Because a lot of these people that we're talking about, we are all sitting here in agreement, they're never gonna change.
Right.
So understanding their journey doesn't really matter because they're never gonna change. And a lot of times folks have only seen one perspective of life because they've only surrounded themselves by the same kind of people that they are, right? And my example for pastor was the ladies I do Pilates with that are all my age or older, many of them white women. And I have no idea, I have no doubt they believe I feel the same way about things that they do.
Right.
Because they know nothing about me at all. So what I see in these opportunities is a balance of being able to share maybe a little bit about your life experiences and have them have an aha moment like, oh, well, I never thought of it that, oh, I didn't know that. And in my case, all I have to do is say, oh, would you like to see a picture of my husband? For them to go, oh, you know, and then like, well, she might have a different life experience than I have, you know. So I think that under having that person understand a little bit more about the fact that the world doesn't look exactly like you think it looks, by sharing what your experiences are, it isn't gonna get them to change their mind. But like I told Pastor, back to you, what's your purpose in it? My purpose is for me to be able to share my views without them shutting me down. Right? Because that's what I also hear. People here are like, well, we just go tit for tat. Well, no one ever really accepts that, well, you might have a point, not that I'll ever agree with it, but at least they'll listen to it. So my purpose with these people is at least for them to listen to me.
And one of the things I found out my entire life, as being one who has assimilated into the quote unquote culture, you know, to have a seat at the table. And the people that I know and associate with, even in the ministry here in the Inland Empire, they take for granted that I think I believe just as they do.
Okay.
You know, and you know, a lot of times they just think, well, he's one of the good old boys, and you know, to the point that I had one friend who would send his racist, biased jokes to me, you know, because I was just one of the boys. And so, and Pastor Brad and I had the same conversation because he's the same way, and people that he know, and they just believe that, you know, well, surely you think and believe that I do. And, you know, Sue and I laugh now, you know, they have dinners because they know that we believe and think differently now. And they have dinner engagements, and Brad said, you didn't get invited?
Like, nope.
They didn't invite us this time, you know, and Brad was like, well, he and his wife had decided they're not going to any more of these dinner engagements as well, because people just assume you believe like them. So my point is, I try to get people to see that there's a different side of the coin, Might be one coin, but it has two sides. And simply because you haven't experienced many of the things that I have experienced, and I haven't experienced many of the things that some of my people have experienced. When I have a kid that tells me, a student, well, what prison did you go to? What do you do your time? Because all these experiences that the men in his life have all done time someplace. And no, I haven't done time.
Okay.
And so I can't relate to that. So we have to, when as a pastor, and I thank God for giving me that heart and ear to listen and hear and have compassion on others, because I have to gravitate to that. There are some things you've done in life and, that I haven't done. So I need to get that perspective because I don't know what, I don't want to say what's wrong with them. I try not to ever say that. I say, what happened to them? And that's the point I try to make. Who did something to you that would get you to this point in life that would make you get strung out on drugs and just not want to change?
And those people that disinvite us now, those are all good Christian people.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, when you said,
Yesterday and I thought.
Joseph, about looking at the complex individual standing in front of you, I mean, look at all the issues here. There's issues of race, there's issues of religion, political, and it's not just, you can't just look at a person and understand and see all that, but then sometimes people are just super disappointing that they've embraced you in the past and everything's been wonderful, and the minute they find out that you don't agree with them on something, don't want you around me anymore, it's really disheartening.
Because they don't like your opinion.
Yeah, yep.
But what I really liked about what Sister Sue shared about how she engages with people when opposing viewpoints, by going to her own humanity and sharing, I feel like that's probably one of the best things you could possibly do to plant a seed for future growth. Because when we have these like hardline ideas about people who are different from us, we're not seeing them as human beings. We're just seeing them as the opponent, the challenge, the other. And when Sister Sue says like, well, this is what I've been through, and this is where I'm coming from, and this is what I value, all of a sudden, a lot of those are pretty universal.
Yeah.
Maybe not all of them, there's differences, but like a lot of those, most of us can kind of connect with on different, spectrums, different ideologies. And then that gets people to think like, oh, well, you're not other,
You're not. Yeah.
Now they can also go in and start deciding, oh, well, you're one of the good ones. There you go. Right. But there's still a possibility that can happen because it's not about the nail, it's not about the policy.
Yeah.
Right? When you're like, we'll use the politics as an example. With the tit for tat thing, if you're in debate with someone over, name the topic, immigration policy, LGBTQ rights, DEI, gun control, whatever, most of the time you're not actually, and this is why it just feels like nothing can come out of it. When you're just debating that, what you don't realize is you're not really debating that. What you're really debating is the values that underlie them. But because you're not actually directly engaging with those values, that's why you just can't, that's why agree to disagree is the best that can happen, because it's really not about any of those policies or individual actions that the president is taking or the senator or whoever. Really, it's a conflict of values. And that comes from their own perspectives and lived experiences. So what Sister Sue does is at least opens the door to maybe where you can talk about that. And then that's where common ground can be found. The only way common ground can be found. Because like most people have noticed, if you just go, well, what about this fact? Well, what about this paper and this study?
Yeah.
That'll just go on forever. It's unlikely you're going to change them, especially when it comes to things like some really particularly offensive viewpoints, racism, things like that. They're not really based in misinformation anyways. They're coming from someplace else. So it's not about showing them the logic of the errors in their logic. It's about understanding who is this individual, What did they go through that got them here? And until you can uncover that and get to know that, yeah, there's not a, you could have a whole binder of facts and figures and research study, ain't gonna amount to much. Zoom people, what did you got? What was the nature of your conversation?
We were basically just like the rest of everyone else, and I just said, I try to sit and just listen to the people talk, because sometimes people just want to be heard. They just want somebody to listen, not to give no advice, not to give no comments, so I just listen. And like you say, when they go to talking about the politics and stuff, I let them talk, because I don't usually talk politics and religion with a lot of people because of the confrontation. And I just leave it off as saying God is in control.
Yeah, I like that. She's centering the needs of the person in front of her a little bit. Like, hey, maybe I don't know what this person really needs, so maybe I just let them go, and maybe I'll let them inform me what they need, and then I'll decide, hey, is that something I can contribute to or not? Do they even want me to? Right? Because maybe they don't. Right? You might have something kind, necessary, and true to say, but if they don't want it, you shouldn't force it. All right, thank you for that. I think we got time for one more of my prompts, and then we'll go to takeaway. All right, that's one of the better ones. There we go. All right, last prompt. Think about a time when someone challenged your beliefs or actions. Sounds like some of you have already been going down that route. What made you more or less receptive to hearing their perspective? Like, what made it either easier or harder to just, like Sister Marcia was saying, to just listen and hear them out? And how did their approach affect your response to what they shared or what they said? All right, any questions? All right, I'm gonna start the timer and put our volume on mute.
That's
Now with this one, Nancy, I used to always have to tell my oldest son, because he would always say, you just want us to have a happy life, so you had one. I told you my life was bad.
Yeah.
And kids just seem to think that. I told them, we just come from a different era.
Right.
Where we had to listen to our parents. We ate what our parents said in front of us. You didn't cook 2 or 3 meals.
That's right. If we got in trouble at school, we'd get in trouble at home.
Yeah, and if your neighbor got you, your parents got you. So we came from a whole different era.
Yeah, you just back, you know.
Right. Yeah.
Brilliant.
And
I know.
Another challenging one, when it's your beliefs or actions, it becomes very personal.
Right.
And that can put you in a situation where you want to confront and possibly it can become combative. So for me, that's when I have to just pause, take a breath, and think about, is it worth
pause and count to 10.
Right. Yeah. I mean, is it worth the battle? And
it's not.
What's the outcome of a battle? There's 2 losers. So there again, the response to, I think the best thing to do is take a breath and then start asking questions about the person, why they're challenging that. What's causing them to go down that road where they're challenging your beliefs or actions. A more productive conversation.
That's good.
instead of just getting in a battle over trying to justify what you've done or what you believe.
Big Mary, see, you gotta
Especially
learn
in
to
the
listen.
area of beliefs, because that's just such an emotional trigger
Right.
that you have to tread lightly. So I can't really think of a specific situation, but just more in general.
That's why I said, Mike, I say my oldest son used to always say, so you lived a boring life. I didn't tell you I lived no boring life. It wasn't nothing boring
Oh
about
my
my life. But you
Yeah,
didn't
that's a
mention
pretty,
the word boring in my house.
yeah. Oh my goodness.
All right, and we'll go in reverse. So we'll go. Sound like the Zoomers are having some pretty good conversations there. Let's try with the Zoomers. So, all right, Zoomers, go ahead and share with us the overall of your most recent conversation.
So I was just telling Nancy how the challenge with my child, my oldest son used to get mad and always tell me, you just mad because you had a boring life. I told him I didn't have a boring life. I say we grew up in a different era. I say you didn't repeat boring life in my mama house, because if you got bored, she got a bucket and gave you a sponge and had to clean the walls and stuff. So you didn't say boring in that household.
You learn the lesson the hard way.
I just had to tell him we just were born in a different era, and things y'all do we wasn't allowed to do. My mother put a plate in front of you, that's what you ate, or you didn't eat at all.
Amen.
Yeah, and we talked about when someone challenges your beliefs or actions. I mean, that can be a minefield. So you really need to take a moment to regroup and make sure that you don't get into a combative situation. And my suggestion would be to question the person about why they're having an issue related to your beliefs or actions, and especially beliefs, because that can get so emotional. So it's taking the time to really have a discussion without being combative. So it could get totally out of control.
Yeah, because beneath every belief, there are emotions. Every belief we have is founded in some kind of emotion, something that happened, or maybe multiple things in our past, and we had an emotional reaction to that, which then became a story that lives in our heads. And then that story fuels our beliefs, and of course, our beliefs fuel our actions. So one of the things, and I'm not going to go into this because that's not the purpose today, but one of the things when I'm coaching the person and not the problem is trying to understand what are the underlying emotions. Now, I'm not a therapist, we don't dig into like the story of that, but just know what are those emotions, and let's explore those a little bit, because that's how the only way that you can possibly get them to entertain a different story, a different possibility, a different perspective. But that's why it's also, like she said, a kind of a landmine. It feels like landmines because dealing with emotions can be tricky, and it is challenging, and when we talk about what's possible, recognizing your own limitations. Is that something that I feel like I can do? And if not, agree to disagree, and go on about your day. Thank you for that. Pastor Sister Sue.
So we had pastor brought up an incident, and Joseph was actually there, so he was witness to how I responded when someone challenged one of my beliefs or actions at a Bible study. And another woman there was very adamant that women should never be pastors or preachers, and y'all know how I feel about that. So And for me, when I break it down now and think about it, I think for me, when someone challenges, it's more about the way they challenge in their tone and their body language of how they're challenging you as to whether or not I make the decision to engage at all. And so in that particular instance, just the passion with which this person was sharing her belief about this and what her Bible said, to me, I knew that there wasn't gonna be a response in that moment that was gonna satisfy anything, and I actually just felt like just a little bit more insight is gonna help you understand things better, but she was not in that place, so I just really didn't say anything. To the point where Joseph remarked about, well, Sister Sue, aren't you gonna say something? Because, hey, it was like, for that individual at that moment, and certainly I did express how I feel, because I have the right to feel differently, and I did that in hopefully a very neutral language way, to not to incite this woman anymore. So that, to me, it's your tone and body language when you challenge something, really determines at what level I'm going to try to either explain my view or maybe we'll just save it for another day when things aren't so emotionally charged.
Yeah.
So when we yell and scream at our kids and everything, because I've heard my grandkids say this, not about us, but others, they just shut it off. They don't want to hear what you're saying, they just shut you down. Whereas if you say, come here, Zach, we gotta talk.
Yeah,
Okay.
nice and calm.
Yeah, grandpa, and so it's that response, the way we respond, it determines a whole lot, how we approach things. If they come at us violently, we just,
And I feel like that was another good example of it's not about the nail, because in that situation, you weren't really debating women's role in the church. What you were really debating was fundamentally, how do we interpret the Bible? How do we read the Bible? That was really what was being debated, although it wasn't explicitly stated.
Right.
And now, even recognizing that in the moment, you probably would have came to the same conclusion. I don't know if changing that perspective is possible here, or even planting a seed. And you did. I feel like you did try to be like. I think you, to some degree, you recognize that. We're like, all right, back to the study.
We can disagree and move on.
You tried. Oh yeah, I think you were there. Yeah. She was there. She was there.
Come on.
No. Yeah, no, she told Julie that she can't worship with people that are on a different path to God. There's only one right one, so.
She doesn't agree that it's already.
Yeah, so she can't worship with us.
Yeah. All right, thank you for that. That was a really great example. Deshaun and Sister Mason.
Had two different scenarios.
Cool.
Hers and not sure one thing.
Well, I was just telling Deshaun about me and a sister that went to churches. And I don't think that doors was open.
Churches, chicken or?
Churches.
Did you go to?
The doors wasn't open, and it was a couple of homeless people around, but it was one lady, I don't know if she was homeless or not, but she asked, could she ride around with the drive-through in order to order something to eat. And this person said, well, no. And which I would have let them, but I went in my car. Said no, and she said, that's why I don't like over here. That's why I don't like this area. Because that's why I don't like this area. That's why I don't But when she said it, I thought about it. She didn't like the area. She didn't like the people. But I lived right around the corner in the same area.
Yeah.
So you don't like me either, really, and I thought it was selfish because I don't judge people. I do not, I never have. And you don't never know a person's situation. Like this lady just didn't have a car and wanted something.
Yeah.
She didn't look all nasty and homeless and stuff. Just another human being. But right then, this other person just judged them. And it made me feel some kind of way. Because like I said, I don't even like over here. And I live right around the corner.
Yeah.
It
He's
take
talking
me
about
home.
you.
So,
Yeah.
you know, people's ugly, a lot of people's ugly. That's not, they're just ugly because they judge people, they don't know their situation. And it's always two sides to anything. And the lady just wanted to ride through, get her something to eat. You know, and it was the ugly remark coming from the person. And you know, it just made me think, well, you know, it just made me think how people think. Because you know, there's a lot of homeless people. And some don't have to be homeless. A lot of them don't have to be homeless. They choose to be. But some of them really do. You know, like what's happening now. There's gonna be a lot of people that's gonna be homeless. There's gonna be a whole bunch of people homeless. And you don't know one from the next. So, you know, you don't judge a person because you don't know their situation.
Mine would go back to one of the guys I talked to, like Sister Sue said, body language in discussions is always like at a good tone, but I guess religion came up one time and he was telling me how like, well, how can you know which one is right? And there's so many. And you know, it made me feel a certain type of way, but you know, I tried to get my point across and I tried to tell them like, well, even if you don't believe in the Bible and if you look back at history, a lot of things in history will correlate with the Bible and things like that. So we'll go back and forth. And as I listen to him, I just think his upbringing or maybe he was hurt from certain situations. I guess he was a foster child and his where he was being raised, I guess his grandmother, and it was an incident where one of his family members, I think a cousin or such, was like interested or learning in a different religion, which I think was Islam. And I guess his grandmother was like, well, if you do that, I don't want you to ever talk to me again. Or maybe the way she like handled the situation. And I think the other thing that hurt him inside was what his grandmother had to go through in the later years of her life. As I was listening, he was telling me how she got old timers and how she was such a good person. She took care of them and how if there was a God, why would she have to go through all these things? And how I was just telling him like, yeah, there's a God, but there's also a devil, and you just have to, you know, hope all things work for the better, you know. And I just tell him like, but I just at that situation, as we just listen, we give our opinion. I just kind of hope I kind of see to make him,
There you go.
you know, think about how my perspective, and then kind of just go from there. But it wasn't like a ugly conversation. It was you know, nobody was yelling over each other. So he just told me why he felt the way he felt, and I just explained to him why I feel the way I feel.
So you both are sharing what you're sharing in a way that makes the other receptive to hearing it, right?
Nice.
And I like that you're kind of just sharing your perspective. And you know, I think that's why Pastor has said many times, like, what's you know, working on your testimony, right? Because I mean, I can't comment on. I haven't really studied Islam. A little bit, Buddhism, out of class in college. I kind of sort of, but mostly surface level, right? So I can't comment on how those compare to Christianity. I just know, hey, since I started this journey, this is what I've gotten out of it. This is my experience. This is why I continue to have the faith that I have. And that's about all I can contribute on that, is just share my own personal experience and hopefully in a way that doesn't come across as judgmental or anything like that. Because and then you know, and I think that you've been experiencing that. So cool. Yeah.
You know what I don't understand? You know, like he was wondering why God let his grandmother get Alzheimer's. God didn't let her get Alzheimer's. It was just she was gonna get Alzheimer's. But the thing is, now people always, most of them, especially the bad people, when they do something wrong to somebody, they can go kill up 10 people and go back home and something happened to one person in their family. they think it's the worst thing in the world, but they just killed 10 people.
Mhm.
And one of their people got hurt,
Mhm.
and it's a big to-do.
Mhm.
So I don't understand, if you do it, it can be done back to you. You know, but then like the Alzheimer's thing, my mother went through it. You know, it's just something that happens in life
Yeah,
as you grow older, you
yeah.
know, like being forgiven.
We don't live forever on this planet.
Yeah.
Here it goes,
Yeah.
sight goes.
Yeah, and we was born to die, so.
Cause we weren't made for this world.
Right,
Mhm.
We were made for eternity.
Right.
We believe the right way,
and
so
people
that's why our
just feel like
bodies
when
are
they do something, it's okay. And when something's done to them, it's the worst thing in the world. You know? They don't think about then why God let me kill all these people.
Yeah.
They don't think about stuff like that, you know? So I don't know. All people are different.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Everybody
really,
have their own
That's what makes it
opinion.
interesting.
that's an incredibly
Yeah,
important
that's what makes
thing to
it
keep in mind. We are all different. There are things that this person in front of me knows that I don't. And
Right.
maybe I should dig into that first before I decide what they need.
Yes,
Mhm.
listen to a person before you form an opinion of a
Right,
person.
yeah, yeah. Jefferson's, yeah, anything to share on this last prompt?
I had an individual walk up to me and look at me and say, you notice I know you walk different. I said, what do you mean I walk different? You got to be a Christian. I said, what are you talking about? Yes, I'm a Christian, but what did that have to do with my walk? You say good morning, you hold the door open for ladies going in the store. I've been watching you for a while.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying?
I know.
But isn't that what we were taught as children? Be courteous and kind. And we were taught it because our parents taught us and the Bible taught them. Do you read the Bible? Conversation ended.
Mhm.
And I said, oh, by the way, why don't you come go to church? No, I got something to do.
When, I think it was Sister Stu that mentioned, it depends on how it comes across, but sometimes, in particular with the kids, you get to the point that you're yelling at them, because when you're telling them in a tone,
Mhm.
calm,
Soft manner.
stuff, they're not doing what you want them to do.
Mhm.
Right? So you get to that point that is like, okay, this is it, I'm done, this is the way it's supposed to be.
Mhm.
And I know that's not the right approach.
It's
But
okay.
you just reach that point that
Right.
sometimes you just,
It's okay.
But she won't listen to me. I told her, Gavin is on. Gavin is testing her because he won't explain anything to her.
Yeah, yeah,
And she
yeah.
raises her voice. And Elias has picked it up now. He's real good.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 I get that, push and pull and different interaction with both parents. We're kind of going through that with Jacob, and this is one of the reasons why Lord said, one's enough for you two. All right, final reflection and share, and then that's it for what I got today. So I'm probably gonna make it 3 minutes. Yeah, discuss with your pew partners. Three big ideas, takeaways from today's experience, things you heard either from me, from each other, things that were shared. What are the three big ideas or takeaways that you could take from today? They can be general, they can be specific. I know when I reflect, I like to think in terms of, hey, what are some things based on my learning that I want to stop doing, start doing, or continue doing, however you want to interpret it. So I'm gonna go ahead, if there's no questions, then I'm gonna go ahead and put the volume down and start the timer, and then we'll do share outs, and then that concludes.
You know.
What do you think, Marcia? 3 takeaways. Marcia, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay. One thing that stood out to me when Sue was saying there was a Bible study and the woman was adamant about women not preaching or
Yeah, they don't believe women should be in the pulpit.
right, right. And I think the way she handled it, she decided that it would be a losing battle. And sometimes we need to just identify that we need to step back, that it's would turn into a battle and it's not worth the effort. So that really stood out to me as a takeaway, is really evaluating what the possible outcome could be and is it worth the risk.
Right.
So what stood out for you?
Well, I know it's so practical.
Yeah,
Marcia, are there other things that you see as are there other things that you see as a takeaway?
Oh, I didn't even know.
That, like you say, with people talking about the politics and stuff, so I just listen and like I say, I just tell them God is in control.
Okay. So that's 2 takeaways. There again, I think the most important thing is to listen.
Right.
Like you said. To listen and decide, is it worth pursuing, or do you just need to listen and try to understand that person's perspective?
So bringing everyone back, and should clear this first. When we're sharing big ideas, takeaways, 3 per group, not 3 per person. just a time. So we'll go ahead and start with Zoomers and go around. So Zoomers, what 3 big ideas did you guys did you two discuss?
Well, one thing that we talked about, and it goes to what Sue was saying during the Bible study, and the woman being very adamant that women should not be at the pulpit, which for Sue, I think is a very important issue. But she determined the environment and the where the person was in that belief, and it wasn't worth the battle. And I think that's a really important takeaway, to really think about what's the risk and what damage could it cause, because getting in an argument with that person would just solidify her stance. And then the other big takeaway that Marcia and I talked about was just the ability to listen. So and that Marcia said, the bottom line is God is in control, and she verbalizes that. So we had 2 main things we talked about.
Thank you. Yeah, that ability to listen, and it's so hard because Like you were kind of mentioning earlier, like you're in work and you just got to get things done, and the world wants us to feel that way. You got to just handle things and move on and move on, and that's how we end up dehumanizing each other.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's it's that worldly influence there that makes it real hard to just sit and listen to the human in front of you. All right, thank you for that. Pastor and Sue.
We talked about, one of the themes came up was and actually, though that you brought it up, was seeking the commonalities that we have, the values, that'll go a long way in us being able to move from confrontation to, empathy when you look at those commonalities that you might have. Looking at the perspective from at the other person's perspective, that question always, that's what happened to you, why do you, digging a little longer? Yeah, we might, even if you and I have some commonalities, but then there might be some different perspectives that I bring to the table that you don't, even though we share a lot, which I do with a lot. We're all Christians and we have this faith in Jesus Christ, but then I also bring some other things to the table that they may not even be aware of, and so that, and then the purpose, what was it?
It was what you started with, Joseph, of thinking about what's the purpose I have in this conversation. Because I think that's where communication goes so wrong, because you just have a thought, you have to get it out, but you have no end goal in mind. It's like you're just throwing stuff out there, not really having a guideline or a structure of anywhere you want to get. So you got to understand what your purpose is in this conversation.
Yeah. Are you trying to really try to affect change and help someone, or are you just trying to win?
Or you just trying to keep the peace.
Or trying to, well, yeah. All right, Deshaun and Sister Mason.
One of ours was listening too, just because you never feel it. Sometimes you just can't change the person's mind. Sometimes it's just better just to let them have it, because sometimes you just be so wanting to get your point across. Like sometimes it's best just to not say nothing, just listen. That was one of ours. Another one was try not to be so judgmental, like Sister Mason was saying. You never know with the homelessness. A lot of people think maybe they're just on drugs or they don't want to work, but a lot of people just have hard times, just in a bad situation. You don't know what the person is going through. So that was one of ours, was just try not to be so judgmental. And our third one was to just love, like Pastor said, you just love everyone. And even if you have different opinions, if it's just coming from a place of love, and then that conquers all, it shouldn't be room to hate someone just because their viewpoints are not like yours. So that was our third one, is just love everybody.
Yeah. I mean, if you're gonna go into a confrontation, that would be a good thing to keep going in your head. Like, I love this person. I want to help this person. I want to understand this person, and just keep telling yourself that before you, you start, like I said, because you want to just say what you got to say, but then like, I love this person. I want what's best for them. Maybe I don't know what that means yet. I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to keep listening. I'm going to dig deeper. Coming from a place of love, that's a great way to make sure that your intentions behind what you're saying are as in alignment with what God would have you to say as possible.
Yeah.
Jefferson's, last not least.
Well, you covered just about everything. But I take away that some people you just can't deal with. And it's best, like the Bible says, first off your dust off your shoes and walk away. But you have some won't let you walk away. I've run into that a few times. But my main thing is not to get my point across. My point is, have you read the Bible? You're making all of these decisions. You're talking about God. You're talking about Christ. But have you read the Bible? And normally when I throw that up, they walk away. Like the other day at the bank, the guy was doing the same thing. And I asked him, did he read the Bible? No, I didn't read the Bible. I learned all this from my mother. I said, she read the Bible. And he just turned around and walked away. But my thing is reading the Bible, looking at people and asking the Lord to bless them. Because it's stated in the Bible, God does not want to lose one soul in judgment day. But he gave you the power to decide if you're gonna believe in him or not. That's the way I look at it. That's the way I look at it. And that's all.
Yeah, I mean, so I ask you, like, why do you believe what you believe? And you say, like, this is the Bible, what I learned from the Bible. And if you want to know more about where my beliefs come from, then we can talk about that. Now, if they don't want to, then I mean, you can't make them. But like that's your thing. Like, well, before we talk about the specifics, let's talk about like where my beliefs come from, which is the Bible. Like you're kind of opening with your values, and let's talk about that. Now, if they don't want to, they don't want to. And then you deciding when you are not going to, when something may not be productive, when it could turn heated or argumentative. That's also being mindful of everyone's watching us, right? Right. And there are too many examples of Christians just being like, well, this and that, and the Bible says this, and this study that, and and we go, oof, I don't go to church with a person like that.
Amen.
Right? Oh, that's what a Christian is. You know what? These unfair judgments we sometimes get as Christians. I mean, they're not completely made up. It's not like they never seen the things they call us. It's not like they've never seen a Christian act like that, or someone that calls themselves a Christian act like that, or many of them. So again, like knowing what's possible and going, hey, I'm also being watched here. Like he's watching your walk, and continue to walk that way right now. Okay, well, thank you so much for engaging and having so many wonderful conversations. I really love to see that, and thank you very much. That's what I got for you today.
Amen. That was good, Brother Elder. We thank you. Our souls were fed. Amen. And that's what we came to be enriching, enlightened, and